Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. Now, Brett, on to episode 68 of The Next Best Bet. You're in New York, I'm in Oregon, still socially distancing as always. We didn't have that great of an episode 67, but we each did get a win that kind of leveled us off.
Yeah, record-wise, it wasn't so great, but we won the right games. Let's just leave it at that.
Well, a quick hindsight with Higgins here. I'm going to have to go through it a little bit more than that, Brett. I won the Dallas money line, which helped put me above it despite losing my pick of the pod, which was Angels minus 1.5. Those suspensions did not come down in time by the next game. In fact, they only just recently came down. And then my long shot parlay, of course, it did not hit. Atlanta was down 10-1 in the second inning, and that was the first game, and I knew it was basically over by then. So, luckily the Mavericks won. That was pretty good. But, Brett, you also went 1-2.
Yeah, I lost the Levy Lock, OKC, +4. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander ended up being a game day DMP, so that one hurt. Minnesota
Swung that line to 7.5.
Yeah, the line moved a lot day of. Milwaukee, Minnesota over 8 was not a win, but that Toronto money line came through Higgins, so really only ended up down like 0.06 units. So really not a bad day at all. 0.06 units, not bad.
If you can find good line value and you can bet mostly positive money, then hopefully sometimes you only need one. And we're going to get into Beginner's Boulevard right now talking about the lock. Because if you only need one, hopefully the lock is that one. It's supposed to be another way to basically say that this bet is a surefire thing. It's a 100%. Now, obviously, no one knows that. The Levy lock, the pick of the pod, those are what we feel most confident in. But a lock is a typical term of someone saying this is a can't-lose situation.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well. No one knows for sure. You can put in all the research, and then as soon as the ball's tipped or the puck's dropped, right, anything can happen between those lines. Injury, or you never know who the breakout star is going to be, what can happen, who can have a bad game.
Sometimes it's just someone's night.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just come out there and they're feeling great. No matter what the sport is, every athlete has that moment that they just feel good that night, and you never know who that might be. You never know what could happen.
It is. In the zone, Higgins.
Yes, in the zone. Now let's jump into MLB territory, though, because it is important to preview this Dodgers-Padres game, Brett. You highlighted this for me in the rundown.
Yeah, I mean, how often do you have two 24-year-old studs going up against each other? It's a short slate for baseball tomorrow. Not that many games on Thursday, Higgins. So I'm definitely tuning into San Diego, Los Angeles. Chris Paddock's 2-1 with a 3.18 ERA, 21 strikeouts. Like I said, he's 24. Julio Urias, 24 years old, going up out there for the Dodgers. He's 1-0 on the year with a 2.4 ERA. So, these guys are going to be the faces of the NL West for a few years to come here, and I'm excited to watch them square off on Thursday.
And that's just the faces or the aces on the mound. Then you talk about the young bats that each of those teams have. And the Padres-Dodgers are going to be a fantastic rivalry for years to come, I think, as long as both teams hold on to their pieces like it looks like they're setting themselves up to be. The New York Yankees, they have a ton of pieces, but they're turning out to be injured pieces. The Aaron Judge, lower body tightness, Stanton's injured again. I mean, this Yankees team has so much potential. They won over 100 games last year despite all their injuries, but it seems like it's the same old story.
Yeah, Stanton and Judge, when healthy is always the sentence, right, Higgins? Like, we just need these
Potent.
guys out, or not we, but yeah, I guess Yankee fans and the New York Yankees more specifically need these guys out there. Judge leading the league in home runs. Actually, hit a home run earlier in the game. He was taken out with this lower body tightness.
I mean, he was on a 6-game home run streak. Giancarlo Stanton, I have on a fantasy team, and he's just constantly on the IL. But when he's not, he's a must start for you. Non it's a non-starter discussion. Like he's someone that you wouldn't consider trading, other than the amount of injuries that you have seen. We talked about the Angels game that I bet on in hindsight with Higgins, and I had set up a precursor with I thought there was going to be a lot of line movement because of some suspensions being handed out to Ramon Laureano. Those suspensions didn't come very quickly. So that game happened at full staff. He got 6 games though. Houston's Astros coach got 20.
Yeah, I think that was pretty spot on. I think the coach was clearly the instigator there. That is a very large suspension for a coach, though. However, and it's interesting. I mean, I think it fits the crime, though. To be honest.
And in a shortened season, 20 games is even that much more impactful as well. So 6 games for a big bat in Oakland to be missing, but 20 games of their hitting coach not being in that dugout, that's going to hurt Houston as well. Joe Kelly's suspension was reduced to only 5 games, so he'll be back on the mound pretty soon for the Dodgers.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting. Again, I feel like none of these decisions are moving very quickly. To your point, Higgins.
I expected a little bit faster movement, but I don't know what I was expecting of MLB when is anything ever fast with baseball. So
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I do think it's funny that both these incidents came against the Astros, right? And like weeks apart, and we get the decisions on the same day. Like, oh, today's the Astros file day. Here you go.
and no one's talking about the Astros cheating scandal anymore. Like what was supposed to be the big headliner of this season. Everyone was going to be interested with how Houston was going to be greeted in all of these different ballparks by the fans all across the country. Well, Astros kind of got the dream scenario with no fans this year and a limited season.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to watch. Another team I'm watching though, the Chicago Cubs. They move on to 12-3 after Wednesday night. They take on the Brewers today, and I will be backing them. Unfortunately, there was no line that came out by the time we were recording, but I'll be on the Cubs. I just wanted to say that quick before we get into the games that we do have lines on, Higgins.
Well, and on social media, I posted a few pics on Wednesday. One of them being the over in the Cubs game, which was at 7.5. So I took that. It was a 7-2 win for the Cubs. That's 9 runs. Cha-ching. Nice little win there.
Good win for Higgins. Let's go.
Chalk it up. And the first game I'm going to be on, Brett, is the Washington Nationals versus the Mets. And the Nats are plus 105, but it's Voth versus Peterson. It's not going to be the big arms. It's going to be the bats that determine this against these lesser known pitchers at the back of the rotations.
Yeah, I mean, I hope Peterson pitches well. He's supposed to be the next arm in line for the Mets coming up from the minors. He has a, high 3 ERA, so it's not great, but he's pitched okay. The Mets looked pretty good on Wednesday night. They scored a bunch of runs. So I'm hopeful they'll be able to score a bunch of runs tomorrow, but I can't say I don't disagree with your logic of just betting against the Mets.
I think the Nats at plus 105 odds, you got to take them, especially since they have 2 very recent wins against the Mets. I know you're saying that the Mets will probably get that win tonight, and although we can't tell the future, it's going to be decided by the time this podcast gets out. Let's assume that they do, and the Nats aren't carrying a 3-game win streak against the Mets. If they're carrying a 3-game win streak against the Mets, I'm definitely taking the Nats, even though I already am on them. But I would just be more strong. I'd probably double up on them. If they lose and they're still going to play the Mets again, and they're 2-for-1 in their past 3 outings against the Mets, Nats plus 105. There's no fans in New York, so I don't care that it's in New York. I just care about how they've played each other recently.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the Mets score a lot of runs. They just always can't stop the other team from scoring a lot of runs. So, uh, the over unders at 9 in what most people consider a pitcher's ballpark at City Field. So, it seems like it's going to be a high scoring game. To your point, with not the aces on the mound.
Yeah. Let's get into your game, though, because you like another game that's going on in the East, but in a different league.
Yeah, I like the AL East matchup between Tampa Bay and Boston. Tyler Glasnow's on the mound for the Rays, so I'm gonna back Tampa tomorrow at minus 156 on the money line. On the run line, it's a lot more even. Higgins. People expect Tampa Bay to win tomorrow, but Tampa Bay at minus 1.5 on the run lines, only minus 104. So, if you want to try and I don't know, play a little more risky bet, that might be intriguing as well.
Minus 1.5 at minus 104. If that got to plus 100, I'd consider it. But if you're giving up multiple runs, which 1.5 you are, if you're giving up multiple runs, I got to get positive money back for it in order to take a run line. I'm not taking it at minus 104. It would have
Yeah,
to move a little bit for me.
yeah. I Boston also lost Benintendi to the IL. Now he wasn't really playing so great this season for Boston, but um, it's significant bat out of their lineup as well. So that might be playing into it a little bit too. Why it's not plus money, but I definitely see your logic.
There's probably another MLB game that I'll find myself on that I'll send a tweet out on Thursday. But right now, for the lines that we have for this episode, that's I'd say the bit of MLB that we have. And plus, this moneyline magic, Brett, this is a doozy. Obviously, we are talking about this 5 overtime hockey game, a game that took so long it pushed a game to the very next day.
I I think that was the best part about it. Also, the Hurricanes' Twitter might have been the best part about it. Their Twitter was incredible
Their
all
Twitter was
night.
hysterical.
Yeah, so shout out to the Carolina Hurricanes Twitter there. But yeah, how about Corpusalo with 85 saves, an NHL record, Higgins?
An NHL record. I can't. That's an astronomical. That's an astronomical number. I saw on Twitter someone saying 100, and this was in like the second or third. I thought they were joking, and he nearly got there. What? The fact that he only let in 3 goals on 88 shots. Superb.
Unbelievable. And I mean, unfortunately for him, the game winner was like a redirected, tip and goal. Nothing you can do if you're the goalie. Like, he really stood on his head for 2.5 games there.
It was really a very impressive game from all fronts, though, Brett, because I was watching the very end of that game. I finally got home from work to be able to, and it was still moving rather fast paced in the fourth and fifth period. I mean, they were. You see, I've seen games in the third period and they're exhausted. These guys were still hustling the puck. It was still a very sharp game.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like playoff hockey. Everyone says it every year. It's the best. It's so much fun. You're on the edge of your seat the whole time, even when the shots are nowhere near the net. You're like, "Holy shit, thank God."
Because
It's
it's the cup.
it's just a different type of gambling pain to go through.
And the Flyers got the number 1 seed. But Brett, your Rangers got the number one pick in the lottery. Now, before we get to our NHL bets, let's talk about that. We joked about you guys tanking for that number one pick, and it actually happened.
Yeah, I didn't truly believe it as like a tank so much as like we're gonna do the right thing. We're gonna let Lundqvist play. I want to say Lundqvist played most of the games against Carolina during the regular season anyway, so then maybe they were just like, whatever,
Three of
we'll
the
let him
first,
go. Right,
3 of the 4 regular season games Lundqvist played, and the Rangers were 4-0 against the Hurricanes in the regular season.
right, yeah, no, that's 100%. I did think that, and I'm glad you were able to confirm that for me. I did not have that up in front of me, but yeah, so you roll out the guy that's had great success against that team, and it didn't work out. He's also, for my money, the best goalie in franchise history. So you don't bench that guy. It's tough. Even though I will openly say Igor Shesterkin was the better goalie all season for the New York Rangers, no doubt about it. But you let Lundqvist go out on his own terms, and you luck into the number one pick. Not a bad year.
I'd say that's a fantastic ending to anybody's year, especially since you got to make it into this strange quarantine extended playoff scenario. Let's get into our NHL picks now, Brett, though, because I hinted at part of my reasoning for this next pick in Moneyline Magic. So it was the Columbus Blue Jackets versus the Tampa Bay Lightning, and it took 5 overtimes for the Lightning to be the winner. I think naturally this is going to go to a 1-1 series. Columbus is just going to come out there and be more determined that they let that long game escape them in a sense. And with the goaltending that they had, if he continues that, there's no reason to think otherwise. So I'm taking Columbus at plus 155. It's that easy.
If he stops 85 shots again, I'm guessing they're winning the game. Yeah, I don't know. I guess devil's advocate Higgins, do you just come back deflated letting that one get away? Like I mean, I almost see
Torts
this
won't let that happen.
you never know. But I mean, you could be so deflated after losing a game like that. I'm staying far away from that one. I'm too unsure, but I like it. You're going the revenge angle. I respect it.
And the other games that'll be going on Thursday are Chicago versus Vegas and Calgary versus Dallas. Now, Brett, you had a lot of words for this Calgary versus Dallas game before we recorded this, but I see that you're not on it.
No, I was hoping it was going to be Cal versus Dal on the scoreboard, but it's CGY versus Dal, and that's upsetting. One quick thing to note, also Higgins for Thursday's slate. Boston Carolina is going to be on a back to back, which you don't normally see in the postseason. So, just adds to the bubble weirdness in the NHL.
Columbus versus Tampa Bay, literally affecting 2 other teams. Now, that is some 4D chess in NHL playoffs in terms of how you are affecting and impacting other teams. Tampa getting the win and forcing 3 teams into uncomfortable scenarios. Very strong move.
Yeah, well, I thought it was funny that Boston Carolina started in double overtime, and what if we started this whole domino effect of not being able to finish games?
Well, yeah, Boston Carolina goes to double overtime, and now they got to play again tomorrow. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, tired legs.
Tired legs feed a hungry soul.
Ooh, that was nice. Let's get into some basketball here.
Into some basketball now. We have some very interesting news from typical fun-loving Giannis Antetokounmpo. He headbutted a man.
Yeah, it was very odd, especially because it was, I mean, Mo Wagner on the Wizards, fine. He was gonna miss the regular season finale with the suspension for the headbutt, but I thought it was so odd. Like, why would you put yourself in that situation in a meaningless game?
Yeah, he's also not typically ever that bullheaded, pardon the pun.
Buckheaded. They don't like that in Milwaukee. Why are you talking about the Bulls?
Oh, buckheaded. You're right. That's a better term for it.
Maybe.
He's not typically that headstrong,
Ooh.
regardless.
Do you think Zinedine Zidane's just like his favorite athlete of all time and he just wanted to pay homage?
Maybe he just earned a new NBA fan from that man that you just said there. That I know the headbutt you're talking about, but I just can't pronounce that name. The Z's trip me up.
Too many Z's.
Let's get into this NBA pick though, Brett, because there is a lot at stake on Thursday and Friday before the end of the NBA season. The 4 through 7 in the West are not locked down at all. There can be a lot of movement between the teams that have qualified for the playoffs but not solidified their seeding. And then there's 4 teams in contention for that 8 seed as well. And they're all playing each other.
It is going to be a wild finish in the NBA over these next 2 days in that Western Conference. It'll be interesting to see what teams are resting, what teams are playing for seeding, what teams, don't think they have a chance to move up. It's just going to be interesting. For instance, in the New Orleans game, Zion is going to be out with a sore knee. So that's important to note. New Orleans is currently 3.5 point dogs. Now, this is still a big game for New Orleans. They play Orlando. On the money line, New Orleans is plus 132. Orlando's minus 156. I don't know if I'm ready to back New Orleans right now, but I'm definitely leaning that way. They need this game a lot more than Orlando does. Orlando's locked into the 8th seed in the East, Jake, and they can't move anywhere. So it would be in Orlando's best benefit to just play the last 5 guys on their bench and make sure everyone's healthy for game
But
1.
this is in Orlando. This is in Orlando, and you gotta respect the house. You gotta set a home house tone going into the playoffs as the 8th seed. Now is the time that you remind everyone that you're in Orlando and you have a home field or home court advantage. Yes.
Oh my
I don't know I
goodness.
don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just bringing up the opposite side of how you would argue for the Magic, but I agree the Pelicans have a lot more at stake in this game.
Yeah, personally, I'm leaning that way. I'm not ready to back him yet, but something interesting. And we had to mention Zion was out, so we might as well mention the lines.
Yes. The other game, Dallas Phoenix. Now, I'm very intrigued by this Dallas money line, but I agree with you, Brett, that I think there's going to be a fair amount of Mavericks that are sitting out because they've locked down their seating. Dallas is basically situated. I just am not confident that Phoenix goes 8-0 in the regular season of the bubble. I don't know. There's something telling me it's not going to happen. Phoenix isn't going to do it. And Dallas at plus 194 is talking to me. But I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. I'm
Yeah.
leaning there though. I'm as you can see, I've talked myself into it quite handedly. I just haven't actually done it yet.
Well, what it is winning 8 games in a row is hard,
Yeah.
period. So, like, forget throwing in a spread at 5.5. Like, I don't even want to touch that. They just need to win 8 in a row. That's difficult. Um, but they do have the bubble MVP on their team. Debatable, I guess. You could argue Damian Lillard, but I'm gonna say Devin Booker, especially if they go 8-0.
If they go 8-0, Devin Booker I would say is that MVP, yeah. But you just brought up Lillard, and that gets us into my pick because Portland's playing Brooklyn. Brooklyn doesn't have anything to really play for. They're locked in at the 7th seed. Portland has everything to play for. They haven't even locked in a playoff spot. They can control their own destiny for that 8 spot, which is where they're sitting at right now. -9. I'm taking it because Damian Lillard has shown he's a man on a mission, and his 61-point effort better have inspired everybody in that locker room to come in and play. Now, CJ McCollum, he's day to day. Who knows if he comes back for this game or if maybe they're going to wait and see for the playoffs. But Portland -9, that's what I'm taking.
I I think Portland's gonna win tomorrow as well. I just couldn't take it because you put your name down first on the rundown, and our pillars say if we're both on it, it's gonna lose. So I don't want to do that to you, Higgins.
I appreciate that. I respect that. Thank you.
Yeah, you've helped me out once or twice. This is me helping you out. But I'm with you. I think Portland, again, going to be very motivated, has everything to play for. Uh, the other bubble MVP is on Portland, so I will back Portland in this one some way, shape, or form as well.
Let's see how that goes. They're -405 on the money line now. That's a little too steep for me.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not touching that.
But what are you touching though, Brett?
I'm gonna be on this Utah San Antonio game. I could see this as a game where Utah views it as an opportunity, like, hey, we can improve our chances. We want to match up against the Rockets here, so let's go out and get this win and see if we can get the Rockets, who are a small team in the first round, and Utah, who is a rather big team, might think there's a little bit of an advantage there in terms of seeding. So Utah on the money line is plus 225. Clearly, people think San Antonio, the team fighting for that 8 seed playing game, is going to leave it all out there. I could see San Antonio, Popovich does weird things. Maybe he just sits some guys for some odd reason. I don't know. You never know. I'm throwing out some
You,
theories,
you
but
never know what Pop's gonna do. You
yeah,
never know what
he
Pop's
might
gonna do.
not even coach the game. I know he let some of his assistants coach some of the preseason games. I know Tim Duncan coached a regular season game at one point this season. So who knows what's going to happen with San Antonio there? But I think Utah has enough to play for that I'm comfortable backing them with the plus 225.
We'll see how that goes. Just to put in perspective this Western Conference that we've talked about. Now, Dallas is the 7 seed at 43 and 31. Now, they're a game and a half behind Utah, so most likely they're not going to move up to 6. But at 8 is where it gets interesting because Portland, 34 and 39, they're 19 and a half games back of the leader. Memphis Grizzlies, 33 and 39. Phoenix Suns, the very same. They're both 20 games back. San Antonio, 32 and 38, also 20 games back. So there are a lot of teams in contention and a lot of paths to get that 8 seed. It'll be very interesting to see where this NBA tree shakes out.
Yeah, I think you said it best. Literally, all four teams are in contention for that 8 spot. So there's a lot of need there, and I think the lines represent that. The books think those teams are going to come out fighting for their lives.
I agree as well, and I think that there's going to be a few teams that are taking a rest night and will probably save their strength and let the team get that win. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But let's jump into the NFL, or basically football news, I guess, because we're talking college football actually. The Big Ten and the Pac 12, they both decided to cancel their football seasons. And Brett, Nebraska's not happy.
Yeah, well, I think there's so many things we can touch on, but yeah, let's start with Nebraska here. And I think it's very odd the situation Nebraska is in because they joined the conference what feels like 5 years ago, might be closer to 10 at this point. But you know, their exiting of the Big 12 was not met with the, it wasn't met with, yay, we're so happy for you, congratulations. Colorado also left at that time, a few other teams. So they weren't the only one to leave. So they're not the only one with ill will towards that the Big 12 has. But uh, it looks like they might need the Big 12 if they want to play football, Higgins.
Yes, and Nebraska, having lived there for 4 years, 3.5, 4 years, football, some football is better than no football. The the Cornhuskers there are the professional football team in terms of fanmanship. I mean, you'll see Kansas City Chief fans or Viking fans or Broncos fans. Like there were Patriot fans. Basically, you'll see fans of wherever Cornhuskers were drafted to. That's what they go by. Go Big Red bleeds deep. They've sold out football games since the 60s consecutively. College football runs deep in Nebraska, and if they can get any form of fall football, I think they will.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand that from a fan base perspective. I just very odd from the school perspective to be out there against your conference. Super odd take by the athletic director there. Like, you need that conference. That's where your bulk of your revenue comes from, to be honest. The TV contracts with the Big Ten. That's why you left the Big 12, because the TV money was better. So just odd overall, but I definitely understand the fan perspective. I will say for those poor Nebraska fans, the only reason Scott Frost is still running through that door is because he's now coaching you.
Well, of course, he ran out of eligibility years ago and he won a national championship doing it.
I know, but the old saying, Larry Bird isn't running through that door. Well, Scott Frost is still running through that door, but not he's not playing.
Okay, there are a few more picks that I have at least because UFC 252 is this weekend and the title fight is fantastic. I mean, part three, Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic. That in itself sells this card, to be honest. But if you look at the fight right underneath that, Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera, that's a spectacular fight too, and I'll tell you why. Sean O'Malley is undefeated at 12-0. He is an amazing bantamweight fighter, and he has rainbow hair that he is typically in a fro, but he dreadlock or cornrows for the fight. You are going to see a man with rainbow hair in the octagon fighting for at most 5 rounds. I don't think it's going to go 5 rounds. I think he's going to get a knockout. He's going to still be undefeated. He's 12-0 right now. I think he's going to win 13-0 by knockout, TKO, or DQ. And getting that at plus 150 is pretty good considering he's a minus 330 favorite straight up. And the plus 150 odds that he gets a KO are the same odds that it goes all the way to a judge's table and he wins.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to trust you because I did not know he had rainbow hair. So if I don't know that, I probably don't know much about the fighter.
He is an electrifying fighter, and it is going to be a pleasure to watch him fight again. There's also some other good fights on this card. I mean, Herbert Burns versus Daniel Pineda, Junior Dos Santos versus Jairzinho Rosenstrike. Now, I think I tripped up on his name a little bit there, but both of those guys are very impressive fighters, and that card reflects it at plus 120, minus 140 odds. So this is a very good fight, but again, the Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic fight, round three, it is the 41-year-old Daniel Cormier's final fight. He's already said that. And I think he's going out there and he's going to get the win. He's going to win back his belt and he's going to retire on top. He has a mission in his mind and he's going to get it done. At minus 115, he's even slightly the favorite right now compared to Miocic, who's minus 105.
Yeah, I guess what makes me nervous with all these judge sports, right, is we saw Dana White even call out the judges. Was it on Fight Island, I believe, for a decision? What's better for the UFC if Cormier goes out on top, or if the next fight can be a fight for a belt for Miocic? So uh, when things like that hang in the balance, it scares me off these fights. But I like Cormier to go out on top as well. That seems like a good storyline, and I'm rooting for him. And like you said, they've already split their fight, so it's definitely doable. It's definitely a reality I can see.
Yeah, I mentioned it's part three. Cormier won by knockout in the first match. He lost by TKO in the later rounds in the second one, but he had a very strong start in those first matches too. I don't think this one's gonna go to the judges' table, Brett. I think there's going to be a finish again, and I think Cormier has prepared for this. I mean, he's been a UFC commentator for a while now, and he wasn't at Fight Island or any of those places because he's preparing for this fight. He's 41 years old. It takes a little more time for him to prepare, but he is one of the. I think he was the first UFC fighter to hold belts in multiple weight classes. He held the light heavyweight and the heavyweight. So if anyone can do it, it is a man that was an Olympic wrestler and set all these UFC records and is going to be in the UFC Hall of Fame when he hangs up his gloves. And minus 115, I think, is some great odds for a great fight, and I'm definitely going to pay for the package to watch it.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and it should be a great fight. I agree totally.
Let's get into the Levy lock and the pick of the pod, though, Brett. Now, neither of us won last week, so I carry on the honors again, and I'm going again with the Nationals money line plus 105. Now, the Nats, like I said, they've got two recent wins against the Mets, one by a very large margin, and with these younger pitchers that they have out there, the lesser known guys at the bottom of the rotation, I expect this is going to be much more about the bats than the arms on the mound. There's going to be quite a few faces you see rotate onto that mound.
Yeah, you know, I'm just rooting against you as a fan, not anything personal. I just really would like if my Mets could figure it out here. uh, but my Levy lock for tomorrow is going to be the Cubs and Yu Darvish against the Milwaukee Brewers. The line is not out yet, but I will say Cubs money line, and I will let you know via social media exactly how I'm on that. You can follow us at NBB Pod on Twitter, at the Next Best Bet on Instagram, and follow us on Facebook at the Next Best Bet.
There we go. Brett giving out the social media cues this time. It has been episode 68 of The Next Best Bet. That is some fighting, some NHL, some NBA, some MLB, and we talked about that 5 overtime thriller. This has been a packed episode. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you after the weekend.